I'm Marcus Blake here at the studio of That Nerd Show, and we are speaking with Mallory Osigian and Nate Shorman of the film Not the Cake from the USA Film Festival. So welcome, Mallory. Welcome, Nate, to That Nerd Show. I know this is the first time you've ever interviewed with us. And, as I was telling you before, you're also going to get a nerdy question, maybe two. But before we get to that, we got to talk about your film. So the first thing that I want to know is, Mallory, I know you're the lead actress and the writer of this film, and Nate, you were the director. Let's start with what this film is about. And I'll let you go first, Mallory.
Cool, thank you so much. This film is about finding joy and levity in difficult common situations, specifically sibling dynamics, reuniting with adult siblings and spending extended periods of time with them. Some really interesting things can come up. So we wanted to tell a story that was relatable and about real things, but still funny.
Now, let me guess. You took inspiration from spending holidays with family, right?
Well, it was actually not only holidays, but the coronavirus kind of brought both of us away from a lot of our work from traveling. Or Mallory was up in New York working, and she ended up coming back to Texas during quarantine to spend time with her family, just to quarantine with family. And I was kind of the same way, and it was amazing and lovely. But then also there's just these dynamics that get brought back up that are kind of interesting and challenging to process through. And the film was, or at least the idea to shoot it, came from just a coffee we got or actually it was over the phone about a month and a half into the pandemic. We were talking about just some similar situations that we had and kind of wanted to process those. And also, like Mallory said,
it's interesting how much, how different our lives are in the pandemic, how, being quarantined, especially being quarantined with family. Trust me, I've got a senior citizen mother that got quarantined with me for most of it, because I had to teach her to do remote school. She's still a part-time teacher. And all the equipment and office equipment's here at my place for her to be able to do her job. And I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting. Very interesting.
And it was something that we found was relatable to large groups of people. Most of the artists we know are in a similar situation of their creative life is kind of on pause, or their professional life is on pause, waiting for the pandemic to end. So it's an issue but a situation of returning to hometowns, returning to family, spending time back with family as adults. It's something that feels universal because so many of our friends were going through it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to talk about because all throughout last year, I don't think people talked about that as much compared to politics and, you go out, will you wear a mask?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Certainly.
No, and I don't want to give everything away in the film because we want people to see it. But I do want to ask this: in dealing with those family dynamics, especially in a very politically charged year, how much does politics and issues surrounding the pandemic come into this story?
I'd say it's definitely an underlying theme. We were very intentional about not including things too specific or too dark because the responsibility of the artist to make art that is relevant and art that the world needs in this moment. We take that very seriously, but at the same time, with so much bad news and with so much darkness, we thought it was important to keep things pretty light and keep things joyful and acknowledge the difficulty without starting the fights or without triggering people who are trying to watch it and have a good time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Nate,
that's exactly right.
I know you talked about, you guys talking about a few months into the pandemic and everything. What really got you on board with this project? And
honestly,
bribery is a perfectly good answer because I have artists, for instance, bribe me to do things all the time.
No, our budget was shoestring, man. It was wild, but very specifically related to Mallory's story. Some of the specifics from Mallory's story just resonated with some things I'd gone through over 2019 and early 2020 with some dear friends and close family members that it was almost like they're like creating the film or helping with the creation of the film and then directing the film was almost therapeutic for me in processing some of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had different artistic goals as well that came together really beautifully because I'm primarily an actor and a stand-up comedian, and so I was thinking, and I've spent a lot of time and effort on playwriting and writing stand-up and pilots and things like that, but I had never written a film for film's sake. And Nate
Right.
has been a photographer for a long time, and he was kind of curious about transitioning into narrative films and like exploring that more. And so it really worked out well that we both were gonna get to learn new things and set out on new paths with this.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
it's interesting that you say that you are a stand-up comedian, and I know, we've interviewed lots of them through comedy festivals throughout the years. The writing process, because you're writing short, quick, jokes, trying to put that together. But how do you take that into writing, something that's, funny, dramatic, and all that, especially with dialogue? How do you feel like there was a big challenge in writing compared to writing jokes?
The challenge for me was to keep the dialogue minimal. I'm definitely a words person. Stand up is all the words, and playwriting is words first, action second, and the words inspiring all the other creativity that comes into a play. And I've been learning a lot about film, and film is pictures first, words second or last. And so it was incredibly challenging for me to to not basically write a play and then ask Nate to shoot it, but instead to think about all the aspects of film and what film can do that theater cannot, what film can do that stand-up cannot, what film can do that a novel cannot. And his initial original set was photography, so it worked out perfect.
I just remember there were several moments when we were kind of going back and forth on script stuff, and there was a page of dialogue that as we were talking through it, Mallory was like, "Oh, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that." And I was like, "Yeah, we can say all of that with a visual."
It was so hard for me, but he knew of like, no, I promise, like that will get through without words.
Yeah.
It's funny to talk about when you're writing a script, because I mean, as an artist, you don't have a lot of time you have a lot of time on your hands. You get, creative. I think everybody wrote a script or did something last year. But if you've watched anything with Aaron Sorkin, it's like you get in that mode, like, I can write great dialogue like that. And it goes off, and then you're like, wow, there's a lot that has to be cut here. I think
So true.
I wonder how much was his dialogue or him letting, like actors improvising more than anything else. But
no, he's actually a fanatic about the syllables. He's a crazy writer.
Yeah.
A huge inspiration. The wit. I love it so much. I worked very hard to not include any of that in this script.
So the shooting process, how did you shoot this during the pandemic or what point during the pandemic?
Yeah, we shot it was it July, Mallory, or August?
It was late. I believe it was August, end of August.
It was August. Yeah. So we shot it out in the middle of nowhere, north of Dallas, about an hour and a half north of Dallas. Over the course of, did we shoot over 3 days?
Yeah, 3 days.
I think, because we had about an hour and a half of light each day because of the time of day of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we definitely wrote it with the pandemic limitations in mind. We made sure to only have 2 actors, made sure to not include a lot of locations or keep us 6 feet apart. That was all kind of baked in.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was going with. I was curious about is how do you do that during a pandemic? Because I mean, there's so many. I mean, you're already facing so many challenges if you're on a shoestring budget anyway. But throw all these protocols into it. So, did you guys find it extremely complicated, or
it was helpful?
Like it's just...
Yeah, it was challenging to think through. It was helpful to have a super small crew. I think there was 4 of us there, so staying 6 feet apart was fairly easier when they had to get closer to each other. The mask piece wasn't wasn't difficult to keep up with. There wasn't like a crew of 30 people running around the side of the road. So it was a lot. It was kind of a simple concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 3 of our 5 actors being willing to do voiceover only.
Yeah, that was easy.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, fair enough.
And everybody that worked on it, we were friends with, so we were able to have the conversations beforehand. Like, well, are you comfortable with this, even with the distancing and the masks? Like, is it something that you're cool with? And all of them were just like, yes, let me work on anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anything that's going to get me out of the house, and
Yeah.
you know, I got to take a break from Netflix. I've watched everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like your first experience with doing a film, right? Okay. How do you feel? I mean, do you feel like not only you've gotten that first one out of the way, but you've dealt with all the challenges of the pandemic? Do you feel like now that the rest is easy, like, we've got this, because you've been challenged more trying to do a film?
No, I still feel like there's so much that I haven't done yet, from a cinematography standpoint.
Right.
That this kind of got my
Gears turning.
Like I'm excited because like it was super fun and I'm really proud of the project. And now there's so much more that I want to do,
Right.
So many more concepts I want to execute and that sort of thing that I've never done before. Still, I like the filmmaking world is absurdly complex and massive, and there's so much to it. But
speaking of cinematography and photos, shooting in Texas, I feel like it's always a unique experience. What makes being able to do, whether it's shooting photos or cinematography, what makes Texas unique to that, experience?
Yeah, Texas, there's a vastness to it that I think is unique, especially once you get outside Dallas, Austin, and Houston.
Right.
That I think, honestly, I grew up here as well, and I think road trips through Texas kind of really shaped my perspective of, honestly, my perspective of the world and its size. And I also just think there's an aura, from the history of the space, some of it good, some of it bad, but it just feels very unique and quintessentially like Texas. I don't know.
Well, I feel like light is different, because it feels like you have 5 different little countries or states that are very different, from East Texas to West Texas, Central, and when in talking about film, we always love to talk about classic directors who really used landscape as its own character. Yeah. I know, John Ford, it always comes to mind about that. So, Texas, you kind of get that. And it feels like, depending on where you're at, really shapes how your film is going to be. So
for sure.
Was the location more or less, it had to be this particular location to tell your story, or was it more, this is the only way we're going to be able to get it done during a pandemic?
Yes and yes. We want, for the sake of the script, we thought the car was a good prop, a good motivator, a good kind of side metaphor for the piece. So it needed to be on the side of a road somewhere. and we felt that it was appropriate that Aunt Carol lived kind of in the middle of nowhere. Seemed like an Aunt Carol vibe. Maybe Mallory has more to say about that, but I was like on board. So it just made sense. And then additionally for the pandemic, we're like, oh, it's perfect. We'll just get like out where nobody is, you know?
Right. So Mallory, in the writing process, I mean, this is obviously a personal story, but the character you play, how much of you personally is in that character compared to just writing a fictional character?
Well, the character of Mo is actually one of the only true things in the piece. It was definitely built on real themes. I have many siblings and many different fantastic dynamics to work with. So the scenario in the film has never happened, that I do not have, you know, a sister named Becca or whatever the character's name was. But it was the idea of doing your best and being frustrated, the ideas of making situations about you that are not about you. A lot of that was things that I definitely struggle with. So I tried to put in a lot of my flaws and then add in good aspects that are not me. So, so the character was and felt authentically close to my character, and then the story itself was a complete fabrication.
Okay.
Which kind of ties into the landscape thing, because the idea of the landscape we did end up finding that was so open, and so it fed so beautifully into the pictures of like the two things stuck in isolation together. So the idea of isolated together and barrenness apart from these two things, and also the idea of everywhere and nowhere, of, you know, no sign markers, no, you know, the idea that could have been anywhere. Was a really cool thing to think about, especially watching, you know, in the editing and seeing the pictures that Nate had actually made that I didn't notice. It really tied in very perfectly, and so it's kind of the non-specificity was, I had thought of it in the writing, and I was so thrilled of the way it came through in all of in every single shot. Now,
has any of your family seen this film and kind of given you a hard time about, I'm seeing me in this film?
They have not. My entire family has seen it. They're very proud. They will be at the USA Film Festival without me. God bless them.
Oh wait, they will? That's great. I didn't know
they
that.
Will. Yeah, it is very much not based on any of my siblings, and none of them got the impression that it was. So we were all in the clear there.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you don't want to make the holidays this year even more awkward. Like,
it certainly is.
Yeah.
The idea of writing about family while I'm living with that family, and the film will come out while I'm living with that family. What a silly thing to do. I did not do that. I definitely avoided any stories personal.
Okay. All right. Now, what is next with this film after the USA Film Festival?
We're just doing the Texas circuit. We're waiting to hear back for some of the things in the fall, and hoping to go up to Austin and stuff like that. There's a couple cool things coming up.
Okay. Now, are you guys working on anything else, or working on your next project together? Anything you can tell us about?
The next project is in its very earliest incubation period. The writing has begun, but there's some limitations. I'm working in Thailand at the moment. I'll be moving back to the States in 2022. So we have plenty of time to iron out our next thing before we're going to be able to physically shoot it.
Oh, well, there you go. Lots of Zoom meetings. Anything you're working on, Nate, that you can tell us about?
Again, most of my projects are in the early stages. There's a project I'm really excited about, though, that we're going to shoot out in the Amarillo area with Liz, Mallory. It's a short form drama. I guess kind of similar, because her humor is very dry as well, kind of like yours. But the visuals, we're very much going for a hell or high water look out in that area. I'm super pumped about it, but we're looking at shooting that at the end of the summer as well.
Okay, good.
And it doesn't have a title or anything yet, but I'm pumped about it.
I wanted to ask a comedy question for you, Mallory. If you are doing stand-up comedy and, you know, building your career kind of through that. How do you continue to do that during the pandemic? I mean, did you find different ways to get your comedy out there besides, writing something?
Comedy really took a back seat during the pandemic. This project was one of the only times that I felt creative and funny. There was some serious mental health struggles in the year 2020, which I think everyone, again, can relate to. So yeah, I found that comedy, I dabbled in different digital versions of things and different social media things, but I really learned how deep my extroversion really goes and how important the audience is to that kind of thing. So it's been a very emotional time waiting until we're able to be in person again. So with acting, because I was primarily a theater actress in New York, so with acting and with stand-up, I've kind of pushed pause, and I'm taking this time in Thailand to kind of creatively become rejuvenated and refuel. And I have so much material now; it's outrageous, and so it's all being stored up everywhere for when people are able to perform again.
You're not the first comedian that has said those things. I'm always curious about how do you figure out how to do that? Do you give Zoom shows? Do you throw in the laugh track? And it's hard because to really be able to do that, you have to have the audience. The audience, that's what helps you determine if the jokes are really working.
That instant feedback, I have not found any substitute for that for developing material.
I mean, I've got plenty of actor friends here in Dallas that, they've done script readings over Zoom, and it just doesn't flow as well because you're not there. Yeah. So, but
painful separation, but we will be back.
But the material, if you've got enough material to do multiple shows or multiple kind of shows, then that's the bright side of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
All right. So you said you're working in Thailand. You won't be back here in the States with us until 2022, huh?
That is correct. That's correct. Our wonderful crew will be, standing in for me at the festival this weekend. I'm so jealous. I wish I could be there.
All right. Well, this brings us to our famous nerdy question that we ask all filmmakers. Here's what it is. So I hope you've had a chance to kind of think about it, because we didn't completely surprise you with it. But if you could have a weapon of choice or a superpower from within the nerd universe to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose? And I'm going to start with you, Mallory.
All right. Well, if this is outside the parameters of the nerd universe, please let me know. But obviously, I would choose the ability to speak every language. To be omnipresent, including animals and computer code. Boom.
Wow.
Here's the enemy. A computer, I'll reprogram you. Is it zombies? I'll enlist the animals.
First of all, that is within the nerd universe. You are basically telling our audience that you want to be C-3PO with over 600 million forms of communication.
I mean, who doesn't want to be C-3PO? Come on.
Exactly. All right. We've never had that answer before, but that is a great one.
You're welcome, nerds.
Got to be a classic writer's answer.
By the way, it is. But by the way, I also think that's a little dig of, I could be universal translator in a Star Trek show. Come on.
Certainly. Oh, come on. I am ready. Disney Plus needs more stuff anyway. Come on.
Exactly.
They're just throwing money at whoever at this point. So I say you go for it. I would go for, I don't know what you necessarily call this superpower, but whatever Doctor Strange can do, where you can open a portal and go back in time, I think that would be quite beneficial and helpful in,
basically using magic to create portals and control, the elements and stuff in life. Okay.
Yeah, just shaping space-time.
Wait, that's a terrible answer. There are like 6 movies talking about how that doesn't work.
Well, but you could fix so. I think if you use it,
forces of evil.
But I'm sure I could use it differently. Wink, wink.
Oh yeah, you're better than Benedict Cumberbatch now.
That's right.
On things than Benedict, my personal friend.
His problem though is he tries to fix all the big stuff. I just think you could fix little things here and there to make the world a better place. You get it.
You would just go invent the French coffee pot a little bit earlier.
Exactly. Yeah, like what could go wrong?
Temperature
It's-
issues, just one thing at a time.
It's kind of like just being the Flash, just little poke here and there,
That's
you
right.
know,
Keep it subtle.
just to fix things, move the
Just
bullet
a
over
time
here.
continuum, not too many waves.
And we've had plenty of debates, especially after the Infinity War movies came out about time travel. First of all, none of us are smart enough to even know how this works. And the fact that, you're boiling it down to Back to the Future, to that concept to save the day, I think that shows that no one really knows what they're talking about, but it's time travel, and it's one little line of dialogue that sort
It'd
of
be a
makes
great
sense
time.
and brings your story together. So Benedict, Doctor Strange opening up a portal here, and I mean, it is a fantastic power. So, and who doesn't want to just?
Yeah, he looks really cool doing it too. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch looks cool and
he's
easy.
cool doing most things for sure.
He kind of does. Even
Yeah,
with the American
although his Southern accent, I hate to say, was a little lacking in that. Last movie he did with Jodie Foster, I was like, that
Wait,
was a little off.
What? He did a Southern accent?
though.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I don't
Wait,
know if you've
why?
seen the movie The Mark, but yeah, he basically plays a guy from West Virginia.
Oh no.
West Virginia, as he says.
I have not heard of this film.
It's the whole Rhett Butler. It's a yabba dabba doo time.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean
my.
there's like a lot of compensating.
What's it
But I
called?
love it.
The Mauritanian. Yeah, it's based off a true story about a detainee at Guantanamo. It's a very good movie. Everybody did a fantastic job. It's a little hard to watch with the torture scenes, but we were kind
A
of
tough
talking.
hang.
Yeah, but we were kind of talking about that with his accent. Like, well, I guess you can't be perfect in everything. That was a little like, but it's still anyway.
Yes, we found his one flaw.
I know.
babe, you can have one.
Well, thank you for interviewing with us and great answers to the nerd question. We want to say congratulations with this film, being able to do something during the pandemic with all of its various challenges. Excited to see what you do with it and where it takes you, and what other projects you're working on, especially when you get back, Mallory.
Sure thing. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Marcus. We appreciate it.